There we go. And today's content is going to be fantastic. If you've heard Dr. Summers before, you already know that. This is actually the second event in a series of 4 that he is doing for us for Accelerate. So we'll send you some follow-up information on those other upcoming ones if you aren't one of the people that signed up for the whole series already, because there is amazing topics that he's going to be diving into, including today's. But before we get to that, one important thing that I do want to point out is that we could not put on not only today's event and the other ones with Dr. Summers, but the entire Accelerate program all year long without our fantastic sponsor. So that is ISU Ivy College of Business. And here with us today is Nick Sloan. So thank you to you and your entire team for making this possible. We absolutely love working with you guys. You are so great. You're a great leader and community partner. So Nick, I will hand over the virtual stage to you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to share my screen here real quick. All right, well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. Hope you're all doing well and staying safe during these challenging times. My name is Nick Sloan, and I'm the Assistant Director of Graduate Recruitment at the Ivy College of Business at Iowa State. I wanted to share some information with you today about some of our part-time programs that are designed for working professionals. We have the Professional MBA, the Master of Business Analytics, Master of Real Estate Development. If you've been thinking about joining a program in the past, now is a great time. We're still accepting applications for 2020 admission. Because of the current COVID-19 situation, we're waiving the GMAT and GRE for all applicants, and we're waiving the application fee for qualified candidates just to help out as much as we can. So I'd like to quickly cover some of our part-time programs. So the Professional MBA is a 2 to 2.5 year program. It has classes just once a week in downtown Des Moines with an online component each week as well. This program is taught by the same faculty who teach in our highly ranked full-time MBA program on campus in Ames. That MBA program is headed by Dr. Jim Summers. The Master of Business Analytics is a 21-month program designed for working professionals again, and it is delivered primarily online. Students are required to come to campus just 3 times throughout the 21 months for 1 week each summer to meet with their classmates and faculty, build teams, collaborate, and during the final spring semester to present their capstone projects. And these capstone projects are neat because they not only benefit the student, but the organizations they work for, because they're working on real life problems that the companies are experiencing. And lastly, we have the Master of Real Estate Development. This program launched last year, so we're heading to year 2 here. It's also delivered primarily online, just like the Business Analytics program, with 3 on-campus courses. During those on-campus courses, students meet with their classmates and faculty, they hear from guest speakers, and they get paired up with an industry mentor, which is a really neat aspect of the program. So as you see, all of our programs have online components for working professionals that offers a lot of flexibility, and we've also been doing online for a long time, and obviously given what happened with the spring, everything got pushed online, and thousands of courses at Iowa State made that transition successfully. So the Master of Business Analytics and Master of Real Estate Development programs admit students for the summer semester only. So the application deadline is fast approaching if you're interested in either of these. And for the Professional MBA program in Des Moines, we can accept applications through July. So that deadline is approaching as well. So if you'd like to learn more or have any questions, I'd be happy to schedule a phone call or virtual meeting with any of you. Please shoot me an email at njsloan@iastate.edu if you'd like to set something up. So thank you again, and enjoy today's presentation.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Nick. And that sounds like 3 very good opportunities for anyone who's interested. And we'll be sure to send out your email and the email that everyone gets at the end of this event, so that if anyone wants to follow up to get some additional information, they can absolutely do so, because it sounds like those deadlines are coming up here quick and we wouldn't want anybody to miss out on those. So thank you again for being a part of this and making this event possible. So I know we've got a lot to get to today, so let's go ahead and hand things off to you, Dr. Summers. Dr. Summers is a Max S. Wortman Junior Professor and Associate Professor of Management, and he's here to share the latest and greatest research-based findings on something we can all greatly benefit from, the art of social negotiation.
Good afternoon, everyone. Getting ready to share my screen here. Let's see. There we go. All right. As was mentioned, today I'm going to discuss influence. Most of us can think about times when we really wanted someone to move in our direction, someone to say yes to us, but we couldn't quite get that done. Now, some of you may be highly charismatic people, or we know those highly charismatic people just always seem to get their way. I personally am not one of those people. So when I was a corporate buyer for Walmart, and throughout my studies of my PhD and through my career now, I have learned and taken an interest in negotiation and how to more effectively get people to move in my direction. So today I'm going to discuss 6 laws of human influence. These are laws that, and I call them laws because they're so tied into our DNA through evolution that they literally tug on our evolutionary heartstrings. So these are steadfast, these work. Now, how well they work is dependent upon your ability to leverage them. So the first one I want to talk about is the law of reciprocity. Now, I want to take a little step back. In undergrad, we all have those professors, and I'm praying I'm not one of those now, that, you know, when you're in Western Civ or American history, they're talking and they'll make some little side comment that, you know, they know about, and they kind of inside joke to themselves and they laugh and think it's funny. Well, one time, one of my professors made one of these little comments, and it happened to do with something with like Ethiopia sending aid to Mexico. So it got me thinking, and kind of the nerd that I am, I did a little research. Back in the day when you actually had to go to the library and look up microfiche, that's how old I am. And in fact, it's true. Ethiopia sent aid to Mexico. Mexico City was hit by a massive earthquake, magnitude 8.0, and Ethiopia responded by sending aid. Not a lot, around $5,000, but sent it nonetheless. Well, this was in 1985, and I know some of you weren't alive for this, but I remember the old public service announcements and then the resulting commercials about the little kids starving, right? Their bellies were swollen, flies buzzing around their face. Probably one of the most tragic times in Ethiopia's long-standing history. Civil war, drought, people were dying by the thousands. But yet they sent money. So I dug in to figure out why. Well, half a century earlier, in 1935, preceding World War II, Italy invaded Ethiopia. And Mexico was one of only 5 member states of the League of Nations to condemn this. And as a result of them condemning it, Ethiopia kept a seat at the assembly. Now, transcending half a century and quite possibly the most tragic privation that we've seen in recent history, the law of reciprocity stood.
Hey, Jim, can I interrupt you for 1 second?
Sure.
Just an FYI, if your screen should be sharing right now, we're not seeing it on our end.
Ah, okay. Well, this is weird. Let's try this then. share.
We'll get it pulled up.
Okay. I haven't got to actually any bullet points yet, so that's actually good.
That's what I figured.
Okay.
We've got your Zoom screen right now, and I know you said you've got multiple. There we go. All right,
Okay.
we're on the right one.
Okay,
Awesome.
perfect.
Thank you.
Okay. So what is reciprocity? It's literally just giving back something similar that's given to us. If we help someone move, what do we expect? They will help us move when it's time, right? You buy someone lunch one day, the next day you expect them to buy you lunch, and they expect that too. And more often than not, we oftentimes give back much more than receive. Why? Because when someone does us a favor, we have this feeling of, that we're indebted to them, and most of us don't like that feeling that we owe someone something. So we're almost always willing to pay that back. So has anybody ever seen how businesses do this? The streaming services do it a lot now. The first month is free, right? Oh yeah, sign up for HBO now. It's, the first month's free, or Disney Plus. They're giving you something. All right. Anybody go to Costco or Sam's Club on the weekends? On a good day, you can eat lunch there, right? Because they have all the samples out everywhere. They are literally baiting you in. They're giving you something with the anticipation that you're more likely to buy. There's this wonderful little experiment that was done at a boutique clothing store in LA. Half the people that walked through the door would be given just a little piece of Godiva chocolate. The people that were given chocolate were 60% more likely to purchase clothing than those who weren't giving chocolate. Now think about how much that cost the boutique. $1, maybe less. But just that act gets people to drop their guard, and they want to be able to reciprocate. I mean, has this ever happened to you? Because you received a sample and you made a bigger purchase because of it? I'm guessing we can all think about situations that we have. So what are some guidelines around this? Well, one, be the first to give. Don't be the person always with their hands out. Be the person to initiate it. Start to be a resource for people. Solve their problems. Because if you're the first to give, then people will be indebted to you. And they'll be more than happy to provide assistance when called upon. Another little trick, make it unexpected. We all like surprises, don't we? Yeah, absolutely. Someone wants to give you something that's unexpected, it means more. And it even means more if you personalize it. Oh yeah, Dan, I heard that, I remember you said that you liked Michael Crichton books or something. Here's the new one for your birthday. It'll mean a lot. Here's the thing. You can't let these opportunities slip away. And in the mode of Iowa nice or Midwestern nice, how many times has this happened? You go out of your way from someone asks you to do something. You drop what you're doing, you go do it. Or you give up a Saturday to help someone move, or you gather some information for someone at work. And then you provide whatever they asked for. And they say, thank you. How do you normally respond? Oh, that's okay. I'd have done it for anyone. No big deal. At that moment, you have just given up one of the most important pieces of power that you have, because you trivialized it. You've made it an entitlement. You haven't made it a reciprocal obligation. So what's a different way of addressing that? Hey, you're welcome. I know that the situation was reversed, you would do the same for me. Right? It's a hell of a lot better than saying, damn right, and you owe me. Right? It triggers that, hey, this wasn't just a gift. Right? It was something that, hey, I did something for you. There's some sort of obligation in the future. Now here's the thing. For some people, I think, well, I'm altruistic. I don't want. How we have moved from caveman or cave person, I guess, to society that we live in now is purely based on the notion of reciprocity. We went from hunter and gatherers to small villages to where people specialize. One group would go hunting, one would tan hide, one would try to cultivate fruits, vegetables, grain, etc. They started doing different things. Well, if I only do one thing, that means I have to what? I have to rely on other people for other products, services, etc. That's how civilization emerges. That's how it grows, just through reciprocity. We're foolish not to take advantage of it, or at least to understand it. Any questions on that one so far? Nope, we're good. The second one is the law of commitment and consistency. We like to live up to what we say, right? You don't want, no one likes to be a hypocrite. You don't want to say one thing and then do something else. Because this really kind of constructs who we are and how we view ourselves, right? If you consider yourself, a thoughtful, giving person, then you probably act in a way that is congruent with that thought. You're probably not going out pushing over, old people to get in line in front of them, or, trying to run scams on people. Now, this is one that if you've ever bought a car or someone tried to sell you insurance or anything else, you've encountered. They try to get you to say yes. Do you like the color of the car? Yes. Do you like the leather? Oh yeah. What about the movie? Oh, I like that too. Oh, what about the navigation system? Oh, yes, I like that too. What about that 1.9% financing? Yeah, I like that too. Want to sign on the bottom line? You're just saying yes, you're saying yes, you're saying yes. And it's hard for you then to take a step back and say no. One way around this too, or one way to make it even more powerful, is to get people to say yes in public. I have been privileged to be at various auctions for fundraisers, for philanthropies. And nothing is better than getting people to say that they'll commit to something in public, right? Someone was like, I'll donate $5,000. What about you, Smith? Right? And then what happens? They're like, yep, I got it. Now, can they back out of it? They probably could, but they'd lose a lot of face, right? Getting people to say something that they're going to do in public makes it a lot more likely that they're going to go through with it. So here's some takeaways for that. One, make it voluntary, right? Making someone say something isn't going to increase the likelihood that they'll go through with it. Make it an active behavior. If you can, make it public. Now, so what do I mean by this? This is pretty simple. There's been lots of studies throughout the years, and it's voting season, right? And you get pollsters calling you up, and they used to say something like, are you going to vote in the next election? What do 90% of people say? Yes. Yeah, I'm going to vote. What's one way that you can trigger this? By asking, will you vote in this next election? Just that little turn of phrase gets people to make a voluntary, active commitment. And just by switching that a little bit, voter turnout increases by 15, 20%. simply by getting people to say, now, if you can get people to say this in front of other people, it works even better. For instance, to have people write it down. It used to be what? You go to the dentist office, physical therapist, etc., and they would literally hand you a card of your next appointment. Has anybody seen them do anything different in the last couple of years? What do they make? What do they have you do? They have you write it down. They give you the card and a pen, and you write down it on the card for yourself, because now you're doing something voluntary and active, and it's in front of people. By doing that, people are much more likely to show up to their appointment. It's something that triggers, that little voice inside us that says, I should do this. This also gets at the question of, if I have a service or product and I'm approaching a customer, do I go with the highest level product, the most expensive one first, or do I go with the less expensive one first? Anybody want to shout out here? You want to go with the more expensive version first. One, it gives them a chance to say no. And when people say no, it actually puts them in a more relaxed state. They're not as defensive. So if they say no, they feel like they're in control. This is what happened to me. I got conned by a Boy Scout selling popcorn when I was in grad school. $20 for a canister of really bad popcorn, and I was Boy Scout. I sold this. I can speak to this. Was no great value. And I politely declined. I said, no, thank you. I'm in grad school. I'm not making much money. And he says, oh, well, that's fine. Well, instead of this bag of popcorn, how would you like candy bars for $1 a piece? Okay, sounds good. Gave him $2, got 2 candy bars. And something, switch flipped. Because I realized something. That kid got me to give up something that I really like, money, for something that I really don't like, which is chocolate candy bars. I don't eat candy. It's just not my thing. So that got me thinking a little bit, like, what just happened? So I dove in, did some research, conducted some research, and realized when someone says no, if we retreat from the situation, we lose, right? If that kid just would have been like, no problem, thank you for your time, jets off. But he retreated within the situation. Oh, if this isn't good for you, well, what about this? And he had me, right? Not to mention, he also anchored me up high at $20. $2, a buck or two seemed very trivial at that time. But he got what he wanted, and he got me to do something I didn't want to do. Oops, sorry for missing on that one. My bad. The next one is social proof. We like to look around and see what others are doing to make sure that what we're doing is right. Right? When we start with a new company, we see how other people are acting, we see how they're dressed, we see if they come in, what time they come into work. We do all these things to understand what are the social norms. Right? We do this because we want to fit in, and we want to understand what are the acceptable forms of behavior. Now, we see this a lot, right? Anybody go to Starbucks? Yeah. There's a tip jar. There's always money in it, no matter what time you get there, right? Someone always puts some seed money in there. What are they saying? Oh, everyone tips, right? So it's not enough that you spend $6 on a Frappuccino or something, right? Like, you need to put money in there for us as well. Now, I know that some Starbucks have taken those out, but that's the idea behind it, right? If everyone is staying in at work till 6 o'clock at night, even though you might get there early, you're probably going to start staying at work later, maybe even showing up later if everyone else does, because you don't want to be seen as a person that's not doing what everyone else is doing. And we see this all the time. Marketers are fantastic at this. They use testimonials and cases. social media now is huge on this. Anytime someone launches a new business, right, they have people go in, like it. They have testimonials from people on Yelp for restaurants, etc. Because, how many people here use Yelp when you're in a new city for trying to find restaurants? I know I do, or some sort of rating system, because you want to see what everyone else thinks. Well, if 1,000 people have rated this place a 4.5, it's probably pretty good. So we're more likely to move in that direction because everyone else is doing it. The next is the law of liking. To do business with someone, we typically want to trust them. Even better if we like them, right? You want to like them, you want to trust them. If you think about the people who you're friends with, whether at work, outside of work, you probably have something in common with them. Probably have a lot in common with them. Great salespeople understand this. That's why they build up credibility and try to convey some sort of likability. I can honestly say that when I got my last vehicle, and I know this sounds crass, but it's the truth, the first person that came to talk to me, I had a really uneasy feeling about this person. They just didn't make me feel comfortable. And even though that the guy didn't like it, I asked to speak to someone different. Years of evolution, millennia of evolution, the reason why your stomach gets a little queasy when you feel like you're in an uneasy situation, it's your body telling you that something's not right. Right? When you're walking down a dark alleyway in a unfamiliar city or whatever the case may be, something is uncomfortable. This is why profiling people and what they call matching and mirroring are really common among salespeople. They get to know their customer. They get to know when their birthdays are, what kind of scotch they like to drink, what sports they're into, et cetera, because it gives them something to talk about. Now, what are some ways that you get people to like you? The first one, like I said, is that it's fundamental that similarity equals liking. If you've ever been on a university or college campus and you've walked into a fraternity or sorority, a lot of people look alike. It happens, right? Why is that? Well, whether it's how they look, how they dress, where they're from, what their interests are, we have a tendency of flocking together, right? Birds of a feather flock together. Now, here's the thing. You can find commonality or similarity on any level of interest, whether it's the type of wine someone likes to drink, their favorite sports team, they're into cars or cooking or knitting. It doesn't matter. You just have to find something that you can find commonality with. And what's one of the easiest ways of doing this? Asking questions. What are you interested in? Or what'd you do this past weekend? People are usually pretty comfortable to talk about themselves and what their interests are. The key here is shutting up and finding out information on what they like so you can find something that is common. Next is, not only do we like people who are like us, we like people who are like us and say they like us. Even though we may get uncomfortable when people compliment us, we still like them. It makes us feel good, makes us feel validated, and that definitely makes us more likely to like someone. We also like people who cooperate with us. When you're at work and someone just jumps in without you asking them, because they may see that you're stressed out or they heard that you're buried, and even if you didn't really know that person, or maybe if you didn't like them before, you're much more favorably predisposed to them now because they're helping you accomplish something. Now you can see as we kind of are progressing through this, they can build on each other, right? So if you're cooperating with someone, they're more likely to like you. But then if that cooperation is a favor, then they're also owe you a favor. So some of these, you're really leveraging multiple laws and you're combining them. Next one is the law of authority. We follow people who look like they know what they're doing. It's that simple. All right? Every commercial that has something to do with a pharmaceutical drug or something else, there's always a physician. And that physician is always in what? This white overcoat with a stethoscope. I can tell you, I've been in, not recently, I haven't been in hospitals, but I had before that from physical therapy and then having surgery on my arm and whatnot. Never really see a physician or surgeon look like that. They're either in scrubs or they're dressed up. But they have that on them to what? To show that they're an authority figure, that they have expertise. And we're much more likely to believe someone when we perceive them as an authority. And by authority, I don't mean hierarchy, right? A sheriff, could be a pastor, could be someone with any sort of recognizable expertise. And this one tugs at two different, evolutionary heartstrings. One are psychological factors that we kind of grow up with or that are kind of innate to us, but also sociological ones, right? When we're younger, we're taught to listen to our teachers, to give people respect that have authority. So it runs on both sides. Now, how can we do this? Well, we have things like titles and certifications, different types of clothes like I alluded to before, etc. So what's kind of interesting about this is there is a really interesting story or study done on physical therapists. Now, what do physical therapists, and I can say I was in physical therapy for 6 months, what do they run into? The problems. Their problem isn't getting people to show up and do the physical therapy. It's to do the stuff they're supposed to do when they're at home. Why? Because maybe they don't think it's credible, etc. Dr. Robert Cialdini did one little experiment. He basically, over where the workstation was of the physical therapist, they put their credentials, their degrees, their certifications, etc. So when that patient was working with that physical therapist, they could see the credentials. Acquiescence of doing their exercise at home increased by 60 to 70%. Just because you're like, oh, wow, this person does know what they're doing. They have these credentials behind them. But there's a problem. You sound like a pompous ass if you're going around spouting off all your credentials. When I'm in person, I've done this a couple of times when I've done Accelerate and other things. I'll kind of just start off and I'll gloat. I've got a PhD, I've did it up, and you can just see people kind of shutting down and backing off. What is wrong with this person? Why are they so cocky? And then I get to this. You can't go around and just have a big sign holding up what your credentials are, can you? No, because you look like an arrogant ass. So what can you do? You have others introduce you. This is when I go to conferences, I have a lot of people, I coach people on this, have others introduce you. And when they do it, a few words behind your name. Oh, this is Jim Summers. He's a professor in blah, 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 and he does blah, blah, blah. It takes 15 extra seconds, and it positively predisposes other people to you. And then it doesn't also look like, you're gloating or you're, getting too big for your britches, so to speak. And this expert introduction has tremendous returns. It gets people to put their guard down a little bit. You don't seem so pompous. And let's be honest, most of us feel really uncomfortable doing that, right? But you're more than happy to introduce someone else and talk about someone else's credentials, but we're not nearly as comfortable about talking about our own. Last is the law of scarcity. We always want more of what we can't have. Right? Why do we like diamonds besides that they're pretty? They're quote unquote scarce. De Beers makes them scarce, but they are scarce, so they're worth more. Precious metals, they're scarce, they're worth more. Face mask, hand sanitizer, about 2 months ago, right? They were worth a lot. And why? Because they were scarce. And a lot of this is based on fear. And it really gets us engaged, right? Because if it's scarce, that means other people want it. So it's got to be worth something. And that justifies the higher price point. For instance, hand sanitizer going for $20, $30 a bottle on Amazon for a short period of time or more. This also works with competition, right? Why does competition drive this? Well, there's only one Super Bowl trophy. There's only one corner off. Well, there's technically 4 corner offices, but right, there's a lot of times only one promotion to get. So that increases competition among people and their willingness to go above and beyond. Oops, here we go. So how can we leverage this? Well, one thing, it's not enough to tell about the benefits. What you need to do is tell people what they stand to lose by not moving in your direction. Humans are very much sensitive to losses, much more so than we are to gains. This has been demonstrated since the 70s with the work of Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky in prospect theory. Daniel Kahneman winning a Nobel Prize in economics, even though he's a psychologist, in the 90s. This really slick little experiment was done by an energy company in Southern California, and they went home to home doing an energy audit. And after they were done, they basically said one of 2 things. If you implemented these suggested changes, you'll save 50 cents a day. Okay. The other half got something very similar, but just with a slight tweak. If you fail to implement these changes, you will lose 50 cents per day. Just that slight of phrase turn, by thinking that you're going to take money out of my pocket, they were 4 times more likely to implement those energy saving suggestions simply by framing it in a loss as opposed to a gain. Other things that you want to do is tell what is unique about the product, what makes it different, and as I mentioned, what they stand to lose. To build upon this a little bit, and I've talked a little bit about this as we went through, is understanding comparison and contrasting. If you've ever bought a house or a car, what do the salespeople always do, a realtor always do? They show you something what? More expensive than what you want. If you say you want to spend $30,000 on a car, they show you ones that are $38,000 to $40,000. If you say you want to that your limit for a house is $300,000, they show you ones for $350,000 or $360,000. Why do they do this? Because they anchor you to something high, and then when they show you something a lot less, it doesn't seem nearly as expensive. So what do? We end up spending $320,000 or $325,000, even though we had a hard budget at $300,000 for a house. Or we spend $32,000 or $33,000 on the car when we were set at $30,000. And marketers do this all the time. they take two completely different things, but they show a couple of similarities between them. So it looks like it's fair, but upon a little more scrutiny, it's like comparing apples to oranges. So what about combining these approaches? Something like reciprocity. Well, you can combine that with something that's exclusive, that makes them feel special. You can personalize it to make sure that they know it's for them. What about commitment and consistency? Reward commitment, right? Think about how many companies offer rewards packages, right? Frequent flyer miles, hotel days, the little stamps you have when you buy burritos. Like whatever the case may be, they want a reward commitment. But when you do that with exclusivity, right? You get phone calls from your credit card company, exclusive offer on a rate change or something or another. And it's just for you because you're such an elite status customer. Makes you feel good. Another one that's common in commercials is leveraging social proof and authority. Being an old school guy, my favorite commercial, because of the Last Dance documentary that went on with the Chicago Bulls in the 90s, showed the old Michael Jordan Gatorade commercials. So you have social proof. You had all these kids, different ages, backgrounds, etc. Everyone wanted to drink Gatorade. And then you had Michael Jordan, the authority figure. Now we see it with Sprite and LeBron James, where you have the commercials and then you have LeBron James come in at the end. So you have, oh, everyone's doing this, it must be great. But then you also have the ringer come in, or the authority figure, and say, hey, this is great. This is why you need to do this. So what are some summary lessons? 1, know what you want. Don't be afraid to ask for it. That's the thing. We're so afraid that someone's going to say no. No is actually your friend. And I will dive into that at one of the next Accelerate talks that I do about actually leveraging no. See, that was a teaser for the next one. Use the word because. Ask what you want, ask for something that you want, and use the word because and support it with a good reason. You'd be amazed at how often this works. Help the other side do the same. This is looking at reciprocity. Help them do it. That's cooperation. People will like you more. And think about how you can leverage multiple principles. So that is my talk. I think I ended up at a pretty decent time from what I was scheduled for.
Yeah.
So,
I know I at least have one question. We can open it up to some Q&A at this point. Feel free to throw your questions in the chat box, and then any that I see that populate in there, we'll have you take yourself off of mute, and then you can ask them. So feel free to send any in there if that works for you, Dr. Summers.
No, that's fine. I see a couple of my former MBA students, so it's good seeing you, Mark and Morgan. Hope you guys are doing
good. So one question to start out with. So you mentioned the law of likability. Mm-hmm. And I think that given enough time, sometimes you find out that you have a lot in common with someone right away. Given enough time, I think you can typically find something in common with someone. But do you have any advice for someone that you need to make a sale to who it doesn't seem like you do maybe have much in common with?
You can almost find always something. It's being pleasant and smiling and being enthusiastic are just little tricks. If you want to see why are people typically likable? Because they're usually happy, right? Most people like being around happy people. So if you smile, you're enthusiastic, that usually draws something out of other people that they want to respond positively to. Right? If someone's really serious and they want to just get down to brass tacks, that usually puts you off a little bit because I don't know you, right? But just getting someone predisposed to you, and we can get into the concept of mirroring later on at a different talk, which we don't have time for, but it's just getting It's literally when someone's talking and literally repeating the last few words of what they said and kind of saying it in a question, you'll get people to talk more. Some people are more introverted and they don't really care to talk a lot, right? So you ask questions and they give you short answers, right? So how can you get people to open up to you? A lot of it is being sincere, truly being interested in that person. We call tactical empathy, right? And it's not a gimmick, right? I would argue that you should approach every conversation with empathy, trying to understand the other side. That's when people will let their guard down a little bit and start to trust you, right? Because typically, if you're selling something, it's because hopefully they could use it or their company can use it. And by listening to them, getting them to open up, you're going to be able to meet their needs much more effectively than someone else.
So another question, I guess in regards to the world we live in now, it's much more virtual focused. I know you talked about credentials, for example. Is that something that if someone has credentials, they should, you can kind of rename your name on Zoom? Is that something they could add on there? Or do you have any other tips that would transition well to the virtual setting that people should take advantage of right now?
A lot of people put them in their email signatures, or list them on, say, LinkedIn, etc. I am the world's worst person for self-promotion. For the people who know me, they know that as cocky as I come off a lot of times, I'm very humble when it comes to trying to speak about, try to talk up or boast. I'm just not real good at it. I'm actually uncomfortable around it. So I do a terrible job at it. So I'm horrible for suggesting something else. Like a marketing person, I get Mark to come in here or something to come and say that. I'm just really bad at that. So I'm much better on the let's talk, let's get to know each other side of things.
Awesome.
But I do have some of that stuff in my, I'm required to have my professorship and my signature, things like that. But
right. And that's a good way, because I think that that's normal enough where it wouldn't come off as being boastful. Sorry if you can hear my dog saying hello in the background.
Mine was pawing at the door to get in, so.
Okay, let's see. Kaylee, it looks like you have a question. You want to unmute yourself and ask that?
Sure. So my question is, a lot of the examples that you mentioned throughout your presentation were very sales focused. How could we use these same techniques or tactics in, say, like a salary negotiation or a lease renewal conversation?
Same thing, right? So whether you're selling yourself to your boss, all of these laws play out. So it's getting, the idea is to get someone to move to your site. So you're talking about a salary negotiation, right? What's information that you can come to, right? Whether it's the average salary is X, right? Social proof. There are other people around you are making X amount of money. So, that's where you should be able to get to. Whether you're doing them a favor and they owe you, et cetera, like anything can work in any situation. So I study teams a lot, and all of this works in teamwork settings, right? You got to be cooperative. You have to understand what are the basic norms so you know how to behave more properly. You can leverage these in any situation. And I'm not a salesperson. I don't teach sales or anything else. People who've taken my negotiation course, the IVMBA, it's very little sales. It's more about problem solving and conflict management. So, did I answer your question? No? Okay.
Yeah, it did. Thank you.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you. And it looks like we have another question from someone on the chamber team, actually, that says, do you have any thoughts or science around what kinds of questions to ask a customer in the beginning of a call to help a customer open up so you can learn the most from them?
Yes, there's a couple of things you can do. One is ask what their needs are. If you're providing them with something, then you can ask, and instead of the affirmative, the negative. You seem to have some reservations. What about this doesn't work for you? Or what are the issues that you see? The idea with any sort of relationship is getting the other side to talk and open up. But how do we do that? Right? It's a combination of doing what you can to be positive, enthusiastic, that kind of happy voice, right? Because when we're in a positive state of mind, we're much more open to possibilities. When we're not, we're angered, that closes our cognitive functioning, meaning we don't think as well, and we are much more standoffish. So just being in a positive frame of mind and enthusiastic, almost like a playful voice, gets people to let their guard down. If you can get them to say no early on, and this is another talk I'm working on about the power of no. If you get people to say no early on, it actually relaxes them and puts them in a better state of mind because they feel like they're in control. Right? So many salespeople work on, as I've said here, work on getting you to say yes. And when we're saying yes, we really don't mean yes a lot of times. We're agreeing with them. And even they say, do you want to buy this? We'll say yes, then we'll find a way to get out later. We're not committed to it. So getting someone to say no early on can allow you then to figure out what does work for them, what they do like about the product or don't like about the product or service, et cetera. So you can start a conversation about what you can do to fulfill their needs.
Awesome. Looks like we've got maybe time for one more. And Morgan has a good question.
Okay, so Morgan's asking about anchoring. So why do things come with a sales price? Because that anchors, right? That starts whether you're buying a house or car, right? That you expect to negotiate on. They provide a price, not just say open bid a lot of times. Why? Because that anchors you to what you have to move from. That's why anchoring is so important a lot of times, because we get tied to it. So, if we're trying to negotiate a salary, for a job, and, a lot of times they say what? Companies are getting a lot smarter about this. They'll have you enter your salary range or salary when you apply for the job. And if you're out of their salary range, they won't even contact you a lot of times. But then if they give you the high end of your salary, you really can't negotiate because they'll say, well, we're giving you exactly what you asked for. Why? Because they want to tie you to those anchors. That's why a lot of times it's, I can talk about both sides on the importance of being the first one to throw out an offer because it sets the anchor. But I can also, so I'm actually writing, this will be a little teaser for the next, I'm actually writing a talk on what they don't teach you in textbooks or negotiation books through my experiences. And it's a lot of times it's counterintuitive information, but it just gives you another way of looking at things. Just provide you some more tools in the old negotiation arsenal or conflict management arsenal.
Awesome. Well, I just want to say thank you so very much to Dr. Summers and to Nick and to the entire team at ICU Ivy College of Business. Again, this is an Accelerate event, and we do try to switch off every other month, doing, a social 1 month to let everybody have even more time to connect and network and build those relationships. And then we bring in Dr. Summers for his fantastic insight. So be on the lookout for more information coming your way on other upcoming events. And we hope to virtually see you very soon. Thanks everyone for coming. Have a good rest of your day.
Bye.
Amazing. Thank you. Incredible. So insightful. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jen.
Everyone.
Welcome.